The cavernous space of the wayfarer's respite was at its usual dull roar, a symphony of clinking glasses, gruff conversation, and the low thrum of starship engines filtering through the dock walls. The air was thick with the smell of recycled oxygen, fried protein, and the distinct musk of a dozen different species. At a corner table, a group of heavily modified travelers, their clothing studded with tech and their eyes glowing with faint implants, played a complex card game involving shifting holograms. They were loud, winning frequently from the other patrons, their laughter sharp and excluding. Near the small, cleared space that served as a stage, a lone figure sat quietly. She was human, slight of build, her clothes simple and worn. On her lap, she cradished an object wrapped in faded cloth. Her eyes, a calm gray, observed the room without seeking attention. The bartender, a broad-shouldered man with kind eyes, wiped a glass with a cloth inside as he watched the winning group bully a Tarklian into a bad bed. The girl stood up. She moved to the edge of the stage space, her steps soundless on the metal mesh floor. She faced the table of the 4 modified players, who were the current center of the room's energy. Her voice, when she spoke, was clear but not loud. It was a blade cutting through the din. "May I play for a bite?" The noise around her table dipped. The 4 players turned as one. Their leader, a man with a cranial array of blue-lit nodes, looked her up and down. A human girl, barely more than a youth, with no visible augmentations. He smirked. "Play. This is Cathar*. Complex probability. Neural adjustments help. You have any chips to even buy in?" She didn't flinch. "I have no chips. I will play for the price of a meal." The special plate. A laugh rippled through their group. The leader, amused by the break in monotony, waved a hand. "A meal, why not? A little entertainment. Sit. You get 1 hand. You lose. You wash our glasses for the night." She nodded and took the offered seat. The other patrons shifted, their attention caught. A fool's bargain. The Tarklian she had indirectly saved gave her a look of pity. The game was projected in the air. Holographic cards. Shifting values based on subtle mathematical harmonics only those with processing augments could track in real time. The girl placed her wrapped object on the floor. She looked at the shimmering cards dealt to her, then at the communal flux field in the table's center, its numbers swirling. "Your move, little bird," the leader said, his fingers twitching, his own implants calculating odds. She did not touch the table interface. She simply looked. Her eyes moved from the cards to the flux field, then to the player's own subtle tells the minute flicker of a light on a temple implant, the tension in a jaw. She spoke. "I will hold." More laughter. Holding on the first flux cycle was a novice move. The game proceeded. Bets were made with light chips. The flux field changed, the harmonics shifting into a more dissonant pattern. The other players adjusted, trading cards, their eyes glazed with internal data. The girl simply watched. When it was her turn again, she said, "I will hold." The leader's smirk faded slightly. This was statistically odd. The final cycle began. The flux field settled into a stable, high-value harmonic. It was a winning tableau, but only if one's cards resonated in the correct sequence. The other players made their final trades, faces tight with concentration. The girl looked at her cards, then at the field. A soft sigh escaped her. "I will hold." The leader barked a laugh. "Holding through 3 cycles? You have a dead hand. Reveal." The players displayed their cards. Their sequences were good, resonating with the field, scoring high. One had a near-perfect harmonic alignment. They all looked at the girl. She reached out and tapped the reveal command. Her cards were displayed. They were not a perfect sequence. They were a *counterpoint*, a series of values and symbols that, instead of aligning with the field's harmonic, created a new one, a simpler, pure wave that mathematically neutralized the field's complexity and rendered her modest cards absolute. The scoreboard flashed. Her number, calm and whole, sat above their fractured, complex figures. She had won, not by beating the system, but by changing the song. The room was silent. The leader's blue nodes flickered erratically. "Impossible. That is not a recognized play strategy." She bent and unwrapped the cloth from her object. It was not a weapon or a tool. It was a musical instrument. Old, wooden, strings over a hollow body, a violin. She placed it under her chin, the wood resting on her shoulder. She picked up the bow. "The meal, please," she said softly to the bartender. Then she closed her eyes. She drew the bow across the strings. The note that came out was not the squeak of a beginner. It was a deep, golden sound that seemed to physically push the stale air aside. It was a single, pure note that held, vibrating in the chests of every being present. Then it blossomed into a melody. It was no song they knew. It was not complex in the way of their tech or their games. It was simple in construction, profound in effect. It spoke of open skies and deep forests, of loneliness and hope, of a single voice reaching across a vast emptiness. It was humanity, distilled into sound. The raw, organic vibration did something the sterile ship hum and synthesized entertainment never did. It resonated. In the Tarklian, it echoed the low winds of its home canyons. In a furred Jaxian mechanic, it recalled the chittering songs of its brood siblings. In the augmented players, it bypassed their neural processors entirely and vibrated in the forgotten organic cores of their brains. It reminded them of what they were before the metal and the code. The girl played. Her fingers flew, not with augmented speed, but with earned grace. The melody swelled, filled the respite, and spilled out the airlock seals into the docking bay. Dock workers paused, their tools hanging loose. Passers-by stopped, drawn by the unfamiliar tide of feeling. In the bar, the leader of the card players felt a tightness in his throat. A memory, long suppressed, a lullaby, a voice, a planet-side night with real air. A single drop of moisture escaped the corner of his eye, tracing a path down his cheek, detouring around the cold metal of his node implants. He did not wipe it away. He simply listened, his defiant posture gone, replaced by the stillness of awe. The bartender stood frozen, the glass in his hand forgotten. He had heard music before. He had never felt it before. It was like a key turning in a lock he did not know he had. The song built to a soaring peak, a cry of defiance and beauty, then gently fell away, returning to that single, pure, sustained note before fading into silence. The quiet that followed was different. It was not the absence of sound. It was the presence of the echo, held in the hearts of the listeners. The girl opened her eyes. She lowered the violin. The room remained utterly still for 5 full seconds. Then, as one, the entire crowd erupted. It was not a raucous cheer, but a deep, unanimous exhalation of wonder. Applause, clicks, rattles, flaps, every species expressed astonishment in its own way. The card leader stood up. His face was unreadable. He walked to the bar, slapped down a high-value credit chip, and pointed to the special menu. For her, and for everyone who wants one. On my tab. He then turned to the girl, gave a stiff, respectful nod, and returned to his seat. Silent, the bartender, his hands slightly unsteady, cooked the special plate himself. It was a hearty stew, rich with real vegetables and protein, a luxury. He brought it to her table, where she had returned, quietly rewrapping her violin. That, he said, his voice thick, was the most extraordinary thing I have ever witnessed. What is that instrument? It is a reminder, she said softly, looking at the steaming plate. Thank you for the meal. Where did you learn to play like that? She looked at him, her gray eyes calm. On a world that still has quiet places. They are harder to hear now. But the songs remain. She ate slowly, savoring each bite, as the respite buzzed with a new, softer energy. Conversations were hushed, as if fearing to break the spell. The card players played on, but their game was quieter, their bets smaller. The Tarklian brought her a drink, a silent offering of gratitude. When she finished, she stood, slung her violin on her back, and walked toward the exit. As she passed the card players' table, the leader spoke without looking up from his cards. Your move was illogical, but your music was not. She paused. The move was the same as the music. It was about listening to the true note underneath. She stepped out into the bustling dock, the cacophony of machinery and commerce swallowing her small form. But inside the wayfarer's respite, the silence she left behind was full. It was a silence that remembered a melody, a silence that held, for the first time in a long time, a shared and astonished peace. The bartender never forgot that night. He often told the story, always ending the same way. She asked to play for a bite. He would say, polishing a glass. And then she fed us all.